Welcome to the demo. I want to show you what I've been working on. This is the work on an early prototype for an insider trading, alerting, and tracking tool. So what I've done here is I've indexed about 1.1 million filings from the SEC's Edgar database. I've collected them, I have cleaned them, and then I've indexed them inside of this graph database. And what this graph database allows you to do, and this front-end visualization, this interface that you're looking at right now, is to, well, visualize that data, but really to explore graph networks or social graphs, things of that nature. So the ownership forms that I downloaded had to do with insider trading. They're Form 4s, and they yield relationship data. So let's see what that looks like. So for example, it lets you do stuff like query for different companies, which you can then double click on the little bubble, the little node related to that company, and see very quickly who owns it. So here in purple are names of people who have some kind of investment or some leadership position in Nike. So, for example, this is Elliot Hill. This is, whoa, Timothy Cook. Interesting. So you can very quickly find things. I didn't even see that before. I had no idea that Tim Cook was invested in Nike. And so it's interesting that this tool can let you, discover knowledge. So Timothy Cook, as it appears, if you can look at the bottom of the screen, is not a 10% owner in Nike, is not an officer, but he is a director. To see where this data is coming from, I've included the source data. So this is the website showing where all of this information came from. So you can kind of scroll down, see that it's in XML. Most people are probably not interested in this stuff, so we'll just go on back to the demo. There you have it. You can visualize connections of people. Actually, I'm going to show you one more. If I double click on Timothy Cook over here, we see that that is indeed the Timothy Cook that we thought he was. He is the Chief Executive Officer, as you can see down here, of Apple Inc. And then Apple Inc., of course, has all of their own officers. So this is kind of fun, right? Because you can double click on things and see the graph kind of explode and lead you down little rabbit holes. So that's for Nike. If you're from Peoria, you've probably talked about Caterpillar before. So let's explore this network for a moment. Doug Oberman tends to be on the left over here when I click on this. Yep, there he is. So there's Doug. And we know that he is if you look at the bottom of the screen again, the CEO and chairman of the board. There's a couple other details on there. So, for example, he is an officer. He is not a director. And that's about it for that. If we double click on him, we can also see that he is an owner of Eli Lilly & Co. as well as Ameren. When you have information like this, if we have a million filings in our database, we may be interested in trying to figure out who are the most connected people in the network, or said differently, who are the most influential people. So to do that, we can run a little calculation that effectively counts how many connections different people have. Very quickly here, we can see the results. So on the top of the list is Bank of America Corp., which, fun fact, used to be named the Bank of Italy. They are connected to 74 companies, or they own 74 other companies. If we look down the list, very quickly we see that a lot of these companies are finance related. We have Goldman Sachs, we have Merrill Lynch, look, another Bank of America. So these entries that have nulls on them, these are mutual funds, and mutual funds are actually just it's a fancy name for a company that just exists to own other companies and to invest in other companies. So if we add the investments between Bank of America Corp. And their mutual fund, we have well over 100 investments for that one company. So Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, we can kind of see if we keep going down. These are all pretty much finance companies. We have pharmaceutical preparations company, Johnson & Johnson. We've heard that name before, so on and so forth. Something kind of interesting in this list, if you didn't catch it already, was that the first person on it is a Mr. Warren Buffett, clocking in with 13 ownerships. And actually, if you go and look a little further down the list, you can see that his company, Berkshire Hathaway, has 11 different investments. So one might be interested in exploring Warren Buffett's network a little closer. So let's do that right now. So there's Warren Buffett's little node. We can make that full screen and kind of separate things out so that we can explore this a little more clearly. So something kind of interesting immediately pops out to us that wasn't immediately recognizable in the previous pane, which is that the companies, or most of the companies that Warren owns, are actually also owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So we have about 11 companies here, and if we hover over the different ownership arrows, we can see that for this one at least, he is not a director, he's not an officer. Actually, at the end of the pane, it shows that he is a 10% owner in VeriSign. So if we kind of do the same up along each of these, we can see that he's basically a 10% owner in all of these companies: Berkshire Hathaway, Moody's, so on and so forth. I think it's all except for one. Yeah. I don't know exactly. Ah, there it is. So he's not a 10% owner in only Graham Holdings. So then if we look on the other side, Berkshire Hathaway is also a 10% owner in basically all of these companies. Oh, I wonder. Oh, look at that. Berkshire Hathaway is not a 10% owner in Graham Holdings, the same one that Warren Buffett wasn't in. So Berkshire Hathaway is a 10% owner in every single one of the companies that Warren Buffett also is a 10% owner in. That's about that for that side of the graph. We can also see here that the only other company that Warren Buffett is not a 10% owner in is Coca-Cola. However, he is a director for that company. One might be interested in exploring the Berkshire Hathaway graph. So let's do that right now. Let's see if there's anything interesting that pops out here. Well, we have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust is invested in Berkshire in some way. They are a 10% owner. So we can see that pretty quickly. And again, we can go to this link and find the source of that information. So that's Warren's network. We could, if we wanted, continue to explore it. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to call that good. But we did explore Caterpillar's network a little bit earlier. We know that Doug Oberman is the CEO and chairman of the board for that company. One might be interested, sitting on a pile of data like this and a tool like this to be able to visualize the connection between, say, Doug Oberman and Warren Buffett. And actually, this tool makes that very easy. You can find what is called the Bacon path, or the shortest path between any entity in the graph, if they indeed are connected in some way. And we can see pretty quickly that these two are connected in some way. Kind of starting from the right here, we have Douglas himself, and we know that he's invested in Caterpillar. He sits on the board with someone named Bradley Halverson, who sits on a board of Cisco Corp with Nancy Newcomb, who happens to sit on the board of Moody's Corporation with Warren Buffett. So Doug Oberman is about two people, or two introductions away from meeting Warren Buffett, if in fact he hasn't met him already. So that's another interesting thing we can do there. Last but not least, one might be interested in exploring the extended networks of certain companies. At the end of the day, companies are a result of their leader's vision and the people who execute on that vision. So if you can kind of quantify what the people of a company want to do, if you can distill what their interests are, one can paint a pretty accurate picture of what it is they want to accomplish there, or at least begin to get a much better picture, much clearer picture of what that looks like. So if we were to do that for, say, Intuit Inc., the creators of TurboTax, QuickBooks, Mint, a lot of financial products, we can quickly see, well, there isn't necessarily one theme among its connected owners, but we do have a lot of highly connected owners who sit on Intuit. For example, we have Suzanne Johnson, who also sits on Visa, Pfizer, Goldman Sachs. There we see that favorite. We have another. This person sits on four boards, so Intuit Inc., and then Qualcomm, American Airlines Group, again, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, along with Symantec Corp. We have a lot of these kind of clusters. Over here, Verizon, Salesforce, Home Depot, Conagra Foods, really, really big names. Apple Inc., Google, Amazon. This guy's really connected. Who's this? John Doerr. Doer. He's a doer, that's for sure. And then Brad Smith, who sits for Yahoo Inc. So just purely through the highly connected board members on Intuit Inc. Intuit is connected to a lot of really, really powerful industries. So, you know, if you were to try to explore this information on Edgar's website or try to build this kind of picture from these links individually, you're going to have a really hard time to do that. However, this tool makes that very easy.